Welcome to Rockmandash Reviews. I'm Kevin, and this is part 2 of my Fate Night review, and just one of my many videos in my Typing Marathon. This is a review of the Fate Night anime made by Studio Dean in 2006. Adapting a visual novel can be difficult as there are multiple routes. Studio Dean tried their best, but they could not tell the story as well as the visual novel. In Fate Stay Night, there are 3 main routes: Fate, Unlimited Blade Works, and Heaven's Feel. They decided to take the most basic yet bland arc, Fate, and started to throw other plot points from other arcs into the story. Fate by itself is just average, but when you try to throw in other arc points into the story and never resolve them, it's kinda like the anime doesn't really know that people die when they are killed, or how to make a story without plot holes and red herrings that didn't exist in the original. Even the parts directly from Fate aren't explained very well. The plot is just less than average, but it's not the worst out there. One thing it did do well is the pacing. It's not too long, but it's not too short. The pacing is pretty good in this anime, which is kinda surprising because the Tsukihime anime is way too short, but the source material was way too long. The anime found a nice balance, and it works.
Show me what you got.
It's meh. Studio Dean has a habit of going off model with its shows, and even though it's better than, say, Higurashi, it's not great either. In comparison to the source material, it's pretty accurate, but it usually looks worse. And out of nowhere, a CG dragon! Fate Stay Night's visual novel has a few sex scenes, and what the anime did to get around this was make a Sega Saturn quality CG dragon, which looked just horrible, and it was rubbish. My biggest disappointment with the art was in the show, the more detail you have in the video, the worse it looks. I first watched this on a low quality stream, and I didn't think it looked too bad, but then I watched it in HD, and now I can actually see the details. And it looks kinda bad. You can see all the flaws in HD, and that's generally something that shouldn't happen. I have no other description for the animation other than that it looks consistently worse than the art in the visual novel. The soundtrack is actually quite great. I really like the first OP. It's one of my favorites and it's really soothing. Most of the soundtrack fits the atmosphere better than the game does, and I prefer the soundtrack overall. It has a grander feel in comparison to the soundtrack in the game. The voice acting for the Japanese dub is the same as the voice actors in the game, so if you like the game's dub, then you will like this one. As for the English dub, it's a mixed bag. Some of the acting is pretty good, but others are really bad. Shiro, Issei, Ilya, in my opinion, just sound rubbish, while Saber, Rin, and Narsha are pretty good. The dub has some good talent in it, I just believe that it's worse than the Japanese dub. I watched the Fate Stay Night anime after I played the game, so that'll give you a bit more perspective on what I think about it. And I watched it twice, but I didn't care for it either times. It's just not very interesting in my opinion, but if you haven't seen the source material, I'd assume you'd like it more than I did. Personally, I just really didn't care for it. This show is weird. It's the polar opposite of the visual novel, yet it's the same thing. The biggest problem the show faces is that Studio Dean messed with the plot, thus it becomes worse than it really should be, even if it is better in some aspects. If I were you, I would just skip this one and watch Ufotable's Fate Stay Night adaptation. This anime gets a 7 out of 10 and a Rockman regrets.